Many of you are familiar with the TV show Breaking Bad, and they have a nice style with their letters that they use on their intro, and looks something like this with the chemistry. So BR for breaking and the BA for bad. So this is a very common, very stylistic font used for the show. So let's say you wanted to make something like this for the web. How would we do this? How would we make our web page look like this? Now, the old way was to actually get the create this font, or you can actually draw it out as vectors in a program like Illustrator, then save it as a picture. So this is really a JPEG. Imagine if I just took a copy of this and of this here and copied and pasted that and put that on the web, and my web page is an image, I would have that stylistic look. The downside of this is it's not searchable, at least by any algorithms and search engines we have today. Because it's a picture, it's not, our robots don't really read pictures and decode them. I can't select any of the text here, and so I can't copy and paste or anything like this. And this also takes a little bit of time, and I can't change it. So let's say I don't want to call it breaking, or let's say I had a spelling mistake here. I'd have to go back into Photoshop or Illustrator, retype it, fix the mistake, copy, paste it as a new picture back. So that's very time consuming. But that's how we did things on the internet when we had to deal with stylistic fonts like something like this, is we would have to make a picture out of them and work with them. Well, I have a font, and you can download this font. It's called Heartbreaking Bad, so if you Google that, you'll be able to find this particular font. And it is based off of, is not exactly, but it is based off of the Breaking Bad kind of style. So you can see we have some chemistry letters for different letters, and we do have BR here and BA. So we do have some characters that look very similar, but not exactly the same as the Breaking Bad font. Very close. Now, when you download this font, it is a OTF. So this is an open typeface font. Now, on the Mac, it's very simple. You hit Install Font, and then you have it on your computer. And I can go into Word or any program, and this font will now be available. And this works. There's nothing wrong with this, but this doesn't really help us on the web. If I install this on my computer, then just show it on the web, and I say, well, this is the font I want to look at, nothing works. A person that does not have this particular font will not be able to see it, and will either default to the next font or default to the default font. So what we had to do is come up with ideas of web-safe fonts. And a web-safe font would be a font that would be common on all computers. So all Macs or all PCs would try to have the same font on all the computers. And Microsoft was really big behind this, trying to get some common fonts on every computer. And they were able to do it on PCs. Macs pretty much did the equivalent, but Linux never really had the same fonts. So we never did get a common set of fonts that were common on all computers. So the idea of web-safe font, even though it seems to make sense, what really wasn't quite web-safe. So whenever you design something, it's not exactly, the text might not look exactly like what you have. So again, if we don't have a web-safe font, then we need to go back and do the pictures. So this is this was a problem, so people decided to tackle this. And what we have is a different way of using fonts on the web where everyone can see them. And so I'm going to show you how to deal with this. So in Dreamweaver, I created an HTML page, and you can see I created HTML5 document. No big deal there. HTML heading, and in this heading I created this at font face, and this is added in CSS2, and this allows us to use a different type of font face to specify different fonts. And what I did is I created a new font, and I'm going to call this Heartbreaking Bad 2. You can call it whatever you want here, it doesn't really matter. You're defining what you want to call this font, and then you need to say where the source is. And the source is going to be, on this particular case, it's going to be in the same folder as this file called fonttest.html. I'm going to have this file called heartbreakingbad.otf. And I'm going to say it's a format Opentype. So what this is going to do is going to load this as a new font face. So whenever I say Heartbreaking Bad 2, it's going to grab this particular font. So now in the body, what I do is I say, well, I'm going to use the font family Heartbreaking Bad 2, which means I'm going to grab this particular font for the body. So my whole body is going to be this particular font. Now you probably don't want to have the whole body being this. You probably just want a div or something to be this particular font. But in this case, I'm showing you how we can do it for the whole thing. The next thing is I'm going to do is I'm going to make a paragraph, and I'm going to make a class. I'm going to call that class just BB. And all I'm going to do is make this font size much bigger, 72 points, just so you can see that's working. So that's all I'm doing. This is a very simple example of trying to show you how I can use this encoded font on the web. And now what I'm going to do is come down here, and the meta tag is no big deal. I didn't even really change the title yet, and then the heading's done. And I get to the body, and remember the body's going to default to my Heartbreaking Bad 2, which is going to be this Heartbreaking Bad Opentype font. And I'm just going to write this is a test, and then I'm going to say Breaking Bad, and then I'm going to say my name here. So that's what I'm going to do. That's all my HTML document does. It's not really anything more than this. But what we're really trying to do is see, can I use this font and work with this font and see what I can do with it. If we go to live view, you can see we have a we get some answers here, and we can actually see something. And you can see here is my first body, that this is a test, and it's pretty hard to see. And here's my 72 points, and I can see I have Breaking Bad. Now obviously the two B's weren't, I didn't get the right character for the BR to put those together, or the BA to put those together, and I'd have to actually look in the font character set to see how to make the BR in the BA. And that just takes a little more work instead of having the B's. But if I try to type my name here, you can see the capital M is a MG, and then the D is DB. So you can see it doesn't necessarily work for all types of doesn't actually work for all types of text. Well, actually the Breaking Bad used two different types of fonts here. It's hard to tell here, but this was one set, and then this was a second set. And you can go Google that to find what the second set here. But this one Heartbreaking Bad tries to do both sets, so I just need to make sure I can come in and use this to see what I can to try to get the right characters here. Now obviously they only had just a few characters to come up with, so that wasn't very difficult for them to implement that. But now what I get in my output is I'm getting my text here, and notice I can come in, I can change things. and I can retype it, and you can see I'm actually working with the real Opentype font. Now when we look at fonts, if we go under, this is in Dreamweaver, if I go into Manage Fonts, my first set is going to be these Adobe Edge web fonts. And this is something that Adobe created. And these are basically free fonts that you can use. And you look through, there's just a ton of them. So we might want to go by what kind of style they are. So here is serif, or sans serif. So sans means in French without, and serif means feet. So these do not have feet. So you can see there's no feet on the A's here. And we get a whole bunch of those. We can get serif fonts that do have feet, and you can see they have feet down here. And so all these will have feet. We can go to slab, which are, I guess, thick. Script obviously looks like cursive. This is going to be black letter, so it's a little more bold here. Monospaced, all fonts are going to be the same size, so the letter A is going to be the same as the letter A. So this is good if we have a column we're trying to type in. Handwritten, looks like it was handwritten. And then we have decorative fonts, which may not be, well, you can play around with that. They might not be something, they may or may not work for what you want to do. So these are the Adobe Edge web fonts. So you can set these up pretty simple. Adobe will do this for you. Basically, just hit it. It will do this for you. We also have Google Fonts, and these Google Fonts you can look at those, and there's places to set that up. So you can set up your Google Fonts and use that. You can use local web fonts, and this is where we can add fonts to basically in the Dreamweaver. So here we can name it, and then EOT was used by Microsoft, and the problem with putting fonts on initially, the reason we didn't like to put fonts on the web is because you would download them to your computer. So let's say I had a font that I paid money for, and if I put it on my web page, then anyone can just download it and have that. So I was breaking copyright, and so this is a big problem. Well, how do I put fonts that I actually paid for, but people can look at it, and I not have copyright issues from this? So what we did is we had several different technologies or formats that helped us or tried to solve this problem. EOT was used by Microsoft and was rejected by the W3, but Microsoft still did it on its own, but then no one really supported that. So this is really a dead standard. The WOFF is going to be your preferred, as of right now, type of method to have your fonts in. So if you can if you have it in this kind of font, or you can convert it, this is what the W3 is, as of right now, recommending for the kind of fonts, if you're not using a Google font or something like this. The next is TrueType font, and this obviously the problem with this is there's you might not have the license for it. You are maybe just breaking your copyright on that. And then one of our newest ones, SVG, and not all browsers as of right now support this, but this will probably be what will be in 5-10 years, will probably be much more a standard. And this is just a scalable vector graphic format font. So we're going to be able to basically see how to draw each letter by hand, and then the browser can just draw that for you. So these are all different methods, and you basically can watch a tutorial on this, or just type in the name, browse, find the font, and then move on. There are different websites that will convert these fonts for you. Now in my particular case, I have a Opentype font, and this WOFF is really a compressed version of the Opentype format. So it takes this font and it compresses it, makes it smaller to send over the internet, and that's just WOFF. So this font, by default, Dreamweaver is not going to want to use it. It's going to want to use a WOFF font, but I can through CSS still use this. The last thing I have is a custom font stack, and these are basically allows me to make my own listing of fonts in case we drop back. So these are all the fonts that are on my computer by default. Now not everyone's going to have access to these, so my font list is going to be only if I have, I could say, well, I want to use this font. If you don't have that, then use this and this and this and this. And this is just an easy way I can create a font list and reuse it. And I can add fonts. Like here I installed that heartbreaking bad font, and then I can create my own list of fonts. So typically this is not what you're going to want to do. But you could create your own font list, but many times you want to create the exact font and then maybe just fall back to something if they don't have that. But here is my font. It works like you would expect it to. Dreamweaver needs to use live view for this. It'll get a warning if you're using this. But now you can do it. You can type in here whatever you like to, and you can then save it and you can run it, and you can test it on different browsers. So this is using custom fonts for your website.